November 18, 2021, Reno County Planning Commission meeting order. Staff, will you call the roll?
Martin.
Here.
Seltzer.
Here.
Macklin.
Here.
Jones.
Yes.
French.
Here.
Gertson.
Here. Welcome to everyone here. We've got three different items on the agenda that we'll be discussing tonight. In our packet were the minutes from the October 21 meeting. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the minutes from October 21. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved from October 21. We'll move right into our first agenda item. To protect the rights of all parties involved and to give an opportunity for everyone to speak, the Reno County Planning Commission follows a specific procedure outlined in the handouts in your chairs. During the hearing, there will be an opportunity for comments from the applicant. In this case, we are going to hear from staff and members of the audience. Members of the Planning Commission may ask questions or request additional information at any time. If the Planning Commission makes a recommendation after tonight's public hearing, this case will be presented to the County Commissioners within approximately 2 weeks. Mark will we'll have a notification when this goes in. Mark, do you have a proper?
Probably December 14th.
Okay.
Maybe I think that's the second Tuesday.
Somewhere in that,
Sometime in December.
With county commission meetings twice a month, it rolls into that timing. Anyone else who is interested can contact Mark or the county commission for the exact date. Regardless of whether or not the planning commission approves or disapproves of the proposed agenda items, it's possible to file a protest regarding the decision. Please contact Mark for the process that must be used to file.
There's no protest with.
There's no protest with this?
No protest with text.
Okay, gotcha. I'll now formally open the public hearing regarding case number 2021-12, a request to amend Chapter 7 and Chapter 9 of the Reno County Comprehensive Plan related to wind energy conversion systems under the titles of residential land uses, other special land uses, and goals for housing, objective number 7. I'll just remind the audience that public comments we want to limit the public comments to each of the separate agenda items. We'll get to all three of them, of course, through the course of the evening, but please keep your comments to the specific agenda item that we're hearing at this time. Staff, do you have some background for this?
Mark Von Atchen, County Planner, to give the Planning Commission some background. On September the 14th of 2021, the Board of County Commissioners directed staff and the Planning Commission to review and update our comprehensive plan and provide for additional guidelines related to commercial energy conversion systems. The goal of the comprehensive plan is really to guide the direction for future development in the county. So at this time, I'll go over the 3 amendments that staff has proposed to the Planning Commission. The first one is under the heading of residential land uses, found on page 54 of the comprehensive plan. We want to add another sentence onto the first one that is under that heading. So we want to add the following phrase, and it'll be as well as designated areas around Cheney Reservoir and areas within the northeast and southeast quadrant of the county. The second amendment is going to be under what we call other special land uses, and this is where you found references to commercial wind energy systems. There's a couple of other words in the second paragraph that we want to add, but also we want to add that prohibition may be necessary to protect the development for future urban areas and existing and future suburban area population bases, particularly in eastern Reno County. The K-96 corridor may also be preserved for future urban development with a prohibition. The process to evaluate an application for a conditional use permit for a wind energy conversion system could take months to complete, and a potential moratorium on the development of wind farms could be considered by the county. Now, I point out that you'll notice that the language that we have here in the comprehensive plan is merely suggestive in nature. It's not mandatory, but these text amendments will allow us to consider all possibilities with commercial wind energy conversion systems. So that's why you'll see nothing in here that's mandatory in nature. It's merely suggested, but by adding this language, it opens up the door for all types of possibilities for that type of land use. The last one you'll see in your packet here is under our housing goals on page 62. And under objective number 7, we want to add that another sentence in that seek to add additional zoning protections from incompatible land uses for residential development within the high growth areas of the northeast and southeast quadrants of the county. So like I said before, these amendments will provide the county the opportunity to set the specific direction in our zoning regulations. Again, the comprehensive plan is merely a guide. The zoning regulations and subdivision regulations are the tools that we use to help implement the goals of the comprehensive plan. With that, I will conclude my comments, and I'll say the staff, which includes myself and the Director of Public Works, Don Britton, have recommended approval of these amendments to the comprehensive plan. I would point out that under my suggested motion, Board, that I do have an error in the last sentence. I have the word reported, and you should just delete the ED on that, so it should be staff report presented by staff. So I apologize for that error. At this time, do you have any questions for me? I would also point out that you've received several updated comments from a lot of citizens, and I have sent those by email to you earlier today, but I've also included them in print form, and they're on your desk. And so we believe that these text amendments will sufficiently allow us to address the future direction of commercial land within Reno County.
Okay. Board have any questions? This time, is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment? I'm sure we might have some comment on this. In this case, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and your address for the record, and please limit your comments to the text amendment to the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Britton, that's a big clock.
Jean Conklin, 21806 South Broad Acres Road, Pretty Prairie. And I'm going to keep this short because I already emailed everybody. And I'm hoping I'm sticking to the right one, because sometimes in my reading, I kind of got it mixed up. But I'll just briefly just point out 3 things real quick. There was some comments in the comprehensive plan about letting the developers determine the best location of whatever they wanted to place. And I just want to kind of focus on is just allowing county officials and citizens and state and federal wildlife professionals be part of that ongoing process. So not just allow the developers to decide, well, this is the best place for it, but for all parties affected to have input into that process from the beginning, and so thoroughly considering and evaluating the value of use from all perspectives, from everybody's perspective. And then the second thing that I had highlighted was just when considering the residential growth, you know, the talk was kind of like about the Highway 96 corridor, but maybe thinking, and I don't know how much development is going on in the other highways through our county, is 50, 61, and 14. Kind of look and see if there's some growth out there. And then keep on going west, because I always want you to consider when you're doing any of it to think about Quivira out there in that northwest part of the county, since it's of hemispheric importance. And they're not only ecologically important, but economically valuable also because of hunting and recreational opportunities. And so, and then the only other thing real quick is when you're talking about wind, and there was a comment in there about solar, and going ahead, and I don't know at what point that is, or whether it's in the comprehensive plan or what, but kind of start developing some text outlining zoning regulations for utility scale solar projects in advance of them coming into the county, and just so we're not caught off guard again like we were with the wind energy coming in, so start thinking in advance. Some of the same kind of things with setbacks and decibel levels with all of their maintenance and the machinery that's there, so but that's it. Thank you.
So, Jean, I just wanted to tell you that I read through that, and I looked at, when you talked about I know there's that language about the decisions on facilities being left to the marketplace, but there is a pretty strong sentence in there about decisions through the conditional use process that the county has input in that, so I think that kind of helps protect us in that. It's like we're not just leaving it open, but we're also not directing exactly what area specific things can be done. So I think maybe that address that. I share your concerns about Quivira, but I don't, we don't have any plans for any zoning that allows us to deal with that at this point, other than the wind energy stuff that we're looking at.
Yeah, and that's true. I wasn't even thinking about solar out there.
And I think, and I've also brought up the issue about solar. It looks like there are a lot less regulations involved in that, but I think it would be wise to be, especially on those utility scale facilities, it would be wise to be looking and see if there's anything we need to add. So I appreciate those comments.
Right, and it's the same kind of thing like setbacks from things that could be affected and locations like maybe on existing buildings and stuff, maybe they could do that kind of thing instead of on prime farmland or ecologically.
We've had a couple of small ones, and there's not been any particular issue with those, but I think once we get to the utility scale where it's a lot of acres, it might be worth looking at.
And that's what I was talking about, the huge ones. Thank you.
I have a question for you, please. Do you have thoughts or suggestions about how we go about, how you would recommend we go about including more people, being more inclusive in the decision-making process, other than holding public hearings, which we do here, and frequently requesting public input, even at our own peril once in a while when the long knives come out? Why, it's not always real pleasant, but are we not, are you of the notion that our present system is not adequate to include as many stakeholders as possible?
It was just kind of with the wind, it seems like it was kind of closer to the final part of the process when more people got involved and found out about it. And so, and so I don't know at the beginning when they do the conditional use permit kind of thing, whether that is that notified to the public when the conditional use thing comes up. When they kind of start coming and we're going like, and when they start kind of deciding where it is. Because I didn't know for sure of the notification project. So I don't have any direct ideas on that at this point, but.
Well, ultimately, it comes down to the applicant, who is probably a landowner person, and his or her relationship with a proposed entity that wants to do the development. And so it's kind of them, and then whatever, and they are subject to whatever county regulations exist at the time. So those are the two places where it starts, and then it kind of comes to us, and to the developmental regs in the course of time, over the course. I don't know how to go about gathering up more people to begin with at the early stages.
Maybe if I just looked through some of your agendas, and then we can kind of find out if we just kind of keep track on the agendas or something. Or I didn't know if there was any public notification kind of at the beginning of a process or not, but yeah. But
Thank you.
anyway, thanks for those questions. I can kind of look into that. Thank you.
Any other comments on this agenda item? Not the public hearing is closed on agenda item 2021-12.
Was that the only opportunity for public comment?
No, we have several different agenda items tonight on the conditional use permit,
Okay.
or excuse me, the condition, or for the comprehensive plan. We've closed for the comprehensive plan. Did you have comments for that?
Go ahead, thank you.
Okay. Is there any discussion between the board?
Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to recommend approval of the text amendments to the comprehensive plan found within Chapter 7, Land Use, page 54 under the heading of Residential Land Uses, page 55 under the heading of Other Special Land Uses, and Chapter 9, Goals and Objectives and Policy Steps, page 62 under the heading of Goals for Housing, Objective Number 7, based on the testimony at the public hearing and the staff report presented by staff.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Staff call the roll.
Martin?
Yes.
Seltzer?
Yes.
Macklin?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
French?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes. We'll now open the public hearing for case number 2021-13. The request to amend the table of contents, Article 1-105, districts, Article 13, height, area, and bulk regulations, Article 15-111, prohibited uses, and create Article 24, CUX, which is Commercial Wind Energy Conversion Systems District, the April 2016 edition of the Reno County zoning regulations. Staff?
So, Board, on September 17th of 2020, this board held a public hearing regarding commercial wind energy conversion system regulations. And out of that meeting, there was a lot of good testimony and a lot of good written supporting documents regarding that topic there. And so I believe that it would be in the best interest of this board to make a formal motion to accept the official minutes from that meeting, but also the documents from that meeting into the public record for this hearing. So I would request a motion on that. A lot of that information from that meeting could be used and should be used in making a recommendation on these text amendments here tonight. So I would appreciate a motion on that end.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll move to enter into the public record the official minutes, public record from September 17th, 2020, public hearing, and identify the minutes as Exhibit 1.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Documents are for the record.
My report, Board, contains a lot of background information on how we came to adopt the 2016 zoning regulations. It includes a lot of history, and as I stated in my report, this board really struggled on what type of zoning regulations we should adopt. We, through that process, found that the traditional type of zoning, which includes commercial, industrial, public zoning districts, did not really fit the needs of this county. It was very cumbersome and very difficult for this board to rezone properties to commercial or industrial when we have a bunch of agricultural land and residential properties. And so it was at that time we were made aware of a different type of concept of zoning, which is a conditional use type of zoning. So it's one where any type of land use can be possibly permitted on a certain property by going through a conditional use permit versus going through a rezone process. That conditional use permit could have conditions attached to it, which may help mitigate concerns of the neighborhood or other concerns of the board and the public. And so that was the type of zoning that we felt was best fit this county. And so that kind of leads us into the discussion on the proposed text amendments that we have here, and it'll go toward my recommendations to this board on that. So I'll run through the proposed text amendments again for your review. And the first one involves just a text amendment to the table of contents. The table of contents proposes to add Article 24, which is the Commercial Wind Energy Conversion System District. That's all it simply is. It's just identifying that as a new article within the zoning regulations. The next one is under Article 1, and again, under Article 1, 105, simply adding the Commercial Wind Energy Conversion System District to the zoning regulations. We also wanted to strike out some of the language on the bottom of that 1-105 because it would be confusing, because you got to remember that what we're looking at under Article 24, that area is essentially going to be unzoned, so there's not going to be minimum acreage requirements out there. So leaving that language in that you see there would present a lot of confusion, I think, to people reading the regulations, and so my proposal is to strike that language in there. Under Article 13, which is our district height, area, and bulk regulations, again, simply we want to add the Commercial Wind Energy Conversion System District to the listing of current zoning districts that we have there. You'll see in that district that we have no maximum height, there's no maximum amount of stories, there's not a minimum lot width, there's not a minimum lot depth, and there's not a minimum square footage. It's simply going to remain like an unzoned area of the county except for commercial wind. Under the yard requirements, though, we've got a reference to see Article 24, which would be there, and then that Article 24 will actually reference a brand new Article 23, which is currently being tabled right now by the county commissioners. That's where you'll get your minimum yard requirements for wind turbines. The next amendment is Article 15.1.11, and 15.1.11 lists a lot of prohibited uses within our current zoning regulations. The proposal is to add a number 7, and number 7 is going to be related to commercial wind, which essentially will say that nobody is going to be permitted to apply for a conditional use permit for a commercial wind energy conversion system in the current zone area of the county. The two resolutions that are referenced in that first paragraph, the first one, 2016-09, is the resolution that adopted the current set of zoning regulations and the zoning map at that time. You got to remember that there was an area within that area that was currently unzoned. There was kind of a pocket within the current zoned area of the county. So the other one is Resolution 2020-10. That was the one where we closed that gap and zoned that area of the county. So both those resolutions will reference the zoned area of the county right there. So if the proposal goes through, no commercial wind energy conversion system conditional use will be accepted in that area of the county. The next paragraph talks about the ability to rezone. We don't want to have the ability for people in the eastern part of the county to be able to rezone to the commercial wind energy conversion system district. If you did that, then those regulations would apply, and then they could actually have a conditional use permit in that area of the county. So we want to also say that you are prohibited from rezoning to that district. Lastly, that little sentence in there, that helps us define what a commercial wind energy conversion system is. So you have to know what we're talking about when we say a commercial wind energy system. That is actually in Article 23, which is again right now being tabled by the county commissioners. The last text amendment is the proposed Article 24, which is the commercial wind energy conversion system district. Essentially what this says is that We are proposing to zone all properties that are not currently under the zoning regulations, and it would be zoned CWEX or commercial land. What you are allowed to do in there is everything you can right now. You can build a house, you can divide your property, you can do everything you can right now out there, except for a commercial wind energy conversion system project. If somebody or a group of landowners in this case would want to apply for a conditional use permit for a commercial wind, they'd have to go through our process, just like you would in the zoned area of the county. So everything else is the same. You can build as many buildings as you want, you can build as many houses as you want, you can do everything you can right now under that zoning district except for a commercial wind energy. And you still may be able to do that, it's just going through our conditional use permit process. And so nothing is really changing with that at all. So those are the proposed text amendments that would be in keeping with the directive from the county commissioners here. So in my report, I kind of gave the planning commission some conclusions here, and prohibiting commercial wind energy conversion systems in the current zoned area of the county is really against the zoning concept that we adopted in 2016. Doing so could lead to future land uses being also prohibited in there. Staff really believes that every person should have the opportunity, whether it's a business or a citizen, to apply for a conditional use permit and establish any type of commercial or industrial land use in the county. Prohibiting a specific land use really denies the applicant the opportunity to go through the public hearing process and work with staff and the public to mitigate any type of concerns about that land use. So we adopted this specific type of conditional use permit process to consider any type of land use, and a commercial wind energy system is a legitimate type of land use that somebody should be allowed to apply for. Go through that public hearing process. If it meets our regulations and it's approved, great. If you go through that process and it's a bad application and it should be denied, then that's just the way that goes. But that person should have the opportunity to do that. So when you prohibit a land use, you're going against the concept that we struggled with so much in 2013, 2014, 2015, trying to come up with something where we could allow commercial businesses and other things to go out in the county here. And so for that reason alone, staff is recommending denial of that section of the regulations prohibiting wind in the zoned area of the county. Staff, which would also include Mr. Britton again here, we would recommend approval of this board to adopt the other text amendments related to creating a commercial wind energy conversion system district. I'll get into that maybe a little bit later when we start talking about the next article. So, with that, board have any questions?
So to clarify, you're wanting us to unbolt just the one piece of the prohibition piece?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And we need to make a decision on that separately to the other amendments.
You don't have to. I mean, you can certainly, I provided this board several options. You can lump them together. If this board has got consensus to adopt everything and send it forward, you can certainly do that. If you feel like there's one that you want to use your term unbolt, you can certainly do that, as well. But if you got consensus on the board to adopt everything as written here, then you can certainly do that.
Or you could have a motion to approve all except one piece. I mean, you could do it as one
You
motion.
could do it that way too. You could make a motion to approve everything except for the 15-111, and then this board could have further discussion, on that piece as well if you want.
So in your opinion, that conditional use permit process is adequate for determining whether those things are appropriate in a particular area or not?
Yes. Yep, I believe it allows staff to review that. It allows the public a notice and the public to come to a public hearing and voice their concerns or support for a project, just like any other type of conditional use. And when you specifically prohibit that, you're denying an applicant an opportunity to establish a legitimate land use that could go in. And the better thing to do is to develop adequate and good regulations that help govern that type of land use, or any type of land use for that matter.
So you're referencing these regulations that were developed back in 2014, 2016, whatever it was.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, or the ones that are currently being tabled right now, if you're going to talk about wind.
Yeah, those all were prior really to a lot of the wind development or any inkling of wind development in Reno County. And, we all know what the present attitude is, particularly in the zoned areas of Reno County, that, the vast majority, at least of the people that have come before this planning commission, have opposed, wind in this portion of Reno County in the zoned areas. And the county commission is also indicating that that is their preference also. I really feel that in light of that information, which things change, and this is information that was not known back in 2014, 16, or whatever, that I think we need to keep up with the times and the wishes and represent the people of this county.
I still think the conditional use permit process is a good process. I think the question is whether it fits this particular situation.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm not disputing the conditional use process, permit process. I think it's valid, it has its place. But I think the overriding issue is should it apply to commercial wind energy systems in the current zoned areas of Reno County when everybody knows that it's not wanted there, first of all. And secondly, that is the one area of the county that has the most potential, I guess you would say, for economic growth down the road. And, wind turbines, I think, would hinder that. You're looking at the K96, K50, those corridors going over to Sedgwick County. I think you're going to see more and more development in that, economic development in that area. You look at like what Yoder's done in recent years, and Haven, and some of those areas that are keeping growing a little bit by little bit. I hate to shut down those future possibilities.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll take comments from the public. And please keep your comments particularly right to the case number 2021-13, the text amendments to the zoning regulations. Each one of you will have 5 minutes. Please state your name and your address when you come to the podium.
Good evening. Jason Seiwer, 14202 East Maple Grove Road, Mount Hope, Kansas 67108. I've got something I want to read real quick, and a couple comments. This is in relation to this Article 1-105, but attached here in kind of in essence of time, not to have a ton of people coming through here, we went out and got some signatures. We got 464 signatures here that I'll give to Mr. Panachin after I'm done here. They're from residents and landowners of Reno County, Kansas, in support of the text amendments to Article 1-105 districts, Article 13 height area bulk regulations, and more specifically Article 15-111 for prohibited uses of the April 2016 edition of the Reno County zoning regulations by adding the CWEX zoning district and adding the 7th item to the Article 15-111, which prohibits commercial wind energy conversion systems in the current zoned areas of Reno County. And these petitions were gathered by the Reno County Citizens for Quality of Life. Mr. Seltzer, you just mentioned some very good points that on the last public hearing I spoke and I gave some factual data. I provided names and contact information of real projects right now in our portion of the county that are on hold. Across the street, there's a building pad that's been there before it was even zoned. 'Cause I know that was a question we had, that some people weren't even aware of it because it's been there. Once the discussion of the potential wind farm was going in, they put a hold on their project until a decision was made, because they're even, at one time even, do they want to develop their property anymore? Down the street, there's a property with 8 open lots. And that particular developer has told me he would already have had 6 of those lots sold and people building on them if there would have been some kind of guidance that would be prohibiting a wind farm in the area. So it's not an if, there is factual. And there's other things that, again, I'm repeating what I said at the last public hearing a little bit here, but I just wanted to reiterate, there is real economical development that will outlive, based on the current lifespan of the wind farm, that would outlive that, and it would be continuing. This is money that would generate tax revenue immediately, not 10 years down the road or whatever. So we can get into that discussion about the revenues, but there's real economical benefits to the county, development, and we've already seen our sister county right next door, a mile away from us, that have very quickly understood the dangers, what it could do to the growth of the rural areas of Sedgwick County. So I am in support. We got 464 signatures here, in essence of time, filing through here tonight to try an agreement. So that's all I had.
Any other comments for this agenda item?
Joe Heeger, 15200 East Maple Grove Road, Mount Hope. So I was really hoping not to speak and wear out another time around. We've done a lot of that over the last couple of years. So I was kind of surprised by a staff recommendation here. Or else there might have even been more show up tonight. We're just really hoping to help you out with the size of the facility and not so many people coming up here and talking necessarily like we've been doing. You've heard a lot in the past. It's true, I'm 500 foot from the county line. Obviously didn't make sense there. It still definitely isn't just a divide line where all of a sudden it does make sense to do another method. We worked diligently to be able to get to the point where we've got some protections in place and signed up for zoning. We all know what that was about. That was to be able to get the protections from CWEX in general. So here we are tonight. Thought we're heading in the right motion. I know a lot of us are blank-faced back here, but really that was a lot of excitement about a half hour ago to turn and go, yes, the comprehensive plan now has in it what was even discussed on the last time Russ Avey had brought it up for you guys to vote on it, and that was one of the comments that we had talked about. I think Ken specifically, when I asked, well, what about where the growth was internal to the county and the studies comparing it to the other counties around, and quick it was, well, we all understand where that growth is, and it mentioned that southeast corner. So the comprehensive plan now, thank you, has that part in there, or a motion to be able to get that into there. And so this is the next part to it, is to be able to get to the point where we do have prohibition of wind. Thank you.
Angela Mans, 14918 East Maple Grove. And again, I wasn't hoping to have to speak tonight. And I think there's a lot of people that would be here normally, but we got the signatures and we're kind of all caught off guard by, again, the staff's recommendation. Our community has fought for the last 3 years to protect our community. So one survey said 76%, others say 86% of the people in this area didn't want the turbines. We fought for 3 years now. It's tore our community apart. It is shocking and actually very discouraging to think that, yes, there is a process, but we have fought really hard, and it has hurt and broke friendships and community apart. And to say, oh yeah, that's a process we can just do again if this comes back. So I just would like to ask you guys to really keep it the way it's written all the way through, and to prohibit wind turbines in the zone portion of the county. Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Helton. I live at 12610 East Maple Grove Road, Mount Hope, 67018. I was just going to say that we're here again. Like Jason said, we're redundant because we've been saying this for 3 years, and in my opinion, it's about time we're heard. We put a ban in the southeast portion of Reno County. We've proven over and over again, a majority of the people out there do not want wind energy. My name's Michelle Nichols. I live at 25511 Woodbury Road, Mount Hope, Kansas, which is in the southeast portion of Reno County. Thank you, Mr. Seltzer, for acknowledging and respecting our wishes. There's pretty much nothing else anybody can add to this except, please, we're asking you to approve the text to prohibit wind energy in the zoned areas of Reno County. Thank you.
Marty Westfall, 3907 East Irish Creek Road, Haven. I was involved in collecting these signatures, and I know you haven't seen them because we were still collecting them this morning. There are signatures all the way to Bueller in the zoned areas, in Hutchinson, not just the southeast portion of the county in the zoned area. I agree with prohibiting wind in the zoned area. Unless you've been emotionally attached to this for 3.5 years, you have no idea how many hours of sleep that we've lost. The other thing that's happened, though, we've gained a lot of friendships, and that's been the positive part of all of this. You know, it's a real shame that we're going to let billion-dollar industrial companies come into our county and tell us what they want to do. It's our land, it's our county, it's our living. You know, there's a lot of us that live on the family farm, and we don't want to leave. But if it starts affecting our health and our way of life, we will leave. We will move out of this county. So I really urge you to approve prohibiting wind in all the zoned areas and the other text amendments that are recommended. Thank you.
I am Gina Smith. We live at 1716 East Arlington Road. We are barely in the smidgen of the unzoned area, and we have been at almost every one of these meetings over the last 3.5 years fighting and helping support these guys because we don't want it in our area either. So I agree with Margie. I mean, just the mere thought of having to be back here and getting so far and then having it maybe being taken off the table makes me sick. I fully support getting it prohibited and just doing away with it in that area.
I am Dee Moore, 3805 West Arlington Road, Hutchinson, Kansas. I have taught in the Pretty Prairie USD system for 31 years. I've lived in Reno County all my life. I had no idea this was going on. I guess I was too busy in the classroom. I had no idea until I got a knock by Jean Compton came to my door and explained this to me. And she showed me the map. I'm living in my house that I really want to die in my house. I don't want wind turbines in my backyard. I don't want them to affect my health. I don't want them to affect my beauty of my home. I don't want them here. And I look at the map and I see how part of our community is protected and my part of the community is not protected. Maybe this is not the part that I'm supposed to be speaking, but I think we're all equal. But when I saw that map, I see part of the community is protected, but I'm not. And especially in our culture today, you know, we're all supposed to be equal. Especially in the courtroom or in this room, we're supposed to be equal. But I don't see us being equal, especially when I looked at that map. Where my property is supposed to be is equal with this area. But yet I'm not. Because I don't have any zoning protection. But y'all do here. So that makes me less. And I told my students that we are all created equal. And I guess I lied. Because I looked at the map. And all these people here are not getting the same. They're not getting equal protection. I guess that's how I see it. Until I saw that map, I guess I didn't understand. I guess I had my head in a hole. But I hope that you protect me as much as you're protecting everybody else. Because I would really like to die with my health in my home that I've lived in most of my life. Please protect that as much as you're protecting my family. You do not want that. Please.
Hello, I'm Shannon Reddick. I live at 6706 East Castleton Road in the Haven Township in Haven. I was actually kind of surprised about the staff recommendation too. One of the reasons 3 years later why we're still here is because it's kind of been shown that the staff recommendations haven't come up with safe and adequate regulations in regards to wind turbines in our area. And that's why we're still fighting this, is to protect ourselves. I wasn't born or raised in Kansas. My mother was, and I moved here about 3 years ago to our particular area for the beauty of my community. I know this is what my dad wants. We do not want wind farms in our area.
Okay, Jean Conklin, 21806 South Broadacre Road, Pretty Prairie. Okay. I've been working with this group in the southeast corner and helping a little bit now and then and I've learned a lot. And so I too want some protections for us out in the unzoned area. So, and you guys know I've been trying to get you to zone over a little bit farther, but I just wanted to, I sent the email with my comments again, so I'll kind of make this brief, but I just wanted to just state that living in an unzoned area, I support the creation of that special zoning district in the unzoned areas of Reno County regarding the commercial wind energy conversion systems only. And I have, we don't have 500 signatures, but I think Dee handed the 27 or so, and I have another 30. Driving around areas around Pretty Prairie, and I got even in a little bit in the Partridge area, a little bit, Partridge Road anyway, but those people have signed that said they support that creation of zoning too, people with a lot of acreage out there. And so we would like to have at least some of the same protections as well as a voice in this process of wind turbine and placement. And so hopefully, and I've been telling people that with this zoning, then that would give some of the same regulations that you guys have been working on for the past 2 years, the setback, the decibel levels, the shadow flicker, mitigation procedures, all those kind of things. So I hope I've been telling them the truth on that. So if we have the zoning, then some of those regulations would be applying to our areas too. And so, and I agree that giving the prohibition in the zoned areas, that would be ultimate protection for them. However, I do want to point out then, if that happens, then to determine, and I have these words, I can't read, absolute necessity of providing special zoning to protect the rest of Reno County citizens living in the unzoned area of the county. So if it's prohibited in the zoning, then we're what's left over. And so if we can have at least a voice and some regulations to not let it just be a free-for-all for the wind energy, that would be great. And I always throw in my little thing about the protecting the wildlife too. So I don't know what this special zoning would help do to Quivira out there a little bit, but if some of that, like a buffer like you've done with Cheney, 5 to 10 miles around our little proportion of Quivira, it's kind of a marshy area out there in that area anyway, but I always have to throw that little perk in for them. And so this special zoning district would help ensure the safety and well-being of lives of citizens as well as wildlife throughout the entire county. So if the zoned areas get that full protection, then we certainly need some, and we would like some protection out here anyway. And I think I could probably get some more. There was a bunch of farmers that, they couldn't get, for one reason or another, they were busy, and so, they didn't get emails and stuff done. I did have a bunch of people that did email the commissioners and Mark already, so that was good. And I think the only other thing, I just wanted to throw in a little perk for, and I don't know, this is just kind of looking ahead too again. We want to get that wind energy thing because it's now, and then kind of think ahead again to the solar. So, I don't know, I know this special zoning only applies to the wind, but as you're looking ahead and looking at regulations and stuff, kind of think ahead for solar when that comes out. But I think that's pretty much it. You've got everything else I wanted to say in that email, so I think that's enough. So, kind of help us protect ourselves too. So, because I've got a lot of farmers who did not want full zoning. They didn't really want to talk about that, but they have talked about this partial zoning for the wind turbines because a lot of them are interested in helping us have a voice for that too. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Wayne Mans, 14918 East Maple Grove Road, Reno. Just wanted to say that listening here tonight, I hear the word community coming up over and over again, just echoing it. And this thing, it is a lot about a community, and community is the lifeblood of Reno County, and promoting new growth in these communities is what is going to make Reno County something greater than what it is today. And I agree with Mark that there are a lot of conditional use, or a lot of land uses that deserve a conditional use permit, but a lot of those land uses are not 500 foot tall and they don't affect properties 2 miles away. This set of circumstances is different. We've bled enough. None of us in this room want to go through another conditional use permit for wind energy, at least in this portion of the county. And with the right placement, there will not be that type of opposition. There's plenty of Reno County left, the unzoned, that would be open for business for wind energy. So I recommend approving the edits as submitted. Thank you.
name is Darcy Gray, and I'm a resident of Andale, near the county line. And I hope that this is the right portion of the meeting to make my comments about opposing wind energy in this portion of the county next to Cheney State Park. Is this appropriate time for that? Okay. Then I'll go ahead. I spoke publicly in 2019 and was among those 11 hours of testimony. I recall there was also 233 protest petitions that year, but again and again it seems we are called to speak out against this. This massive corporation continues to drag this out on the taxpayers' dime in Reno County District Court. And it seems like it just is endless until maybe they get their way. But in general, I'm not opposed to wind energy. I am opposed to the details of this particular project. Many do not make sense. I'm opposed to it being so close to Cheney State Park. And I understand that some of that would have to be taken up with the state, and that you can only do so much to protect our state parks. But 80 plus of these massive turbines, more than 500 feet tall, taller than any building in this region, taller than the Statue of Liberty. Other things that I think are good to remind in a public meeting is the lack of using Siemens, the local turbine manufacturer, that seemed to be a no-brainer from the get-go, selling the energy out of state. A lot of people have commented to me personally, oh, this is great, Pretty Prairie Wind Farm, you can power your schools and your homes, but no, it doesn't benefit this area. This project spans an area larger than the reservoir itself, which saw a record 1 million plus visitors last year. Only 10 possible permanent jobs. The big corporation trusted with conducting its own wildlife study. I think at the hearing I went to in 2019, they had counted maybe 12 eagles. I've heard from Ken at the Eagle Valley Raptor Center near Cheney State Park that he has counted a couple hundred, and he disagreed with that. If you look at the records of the Hutchinson News, you'll see even the Audubon Society had called this project anything but green, was the quote. I know the corporation is armed with lobbyists and lawyers that have already impacted state legislature. As you recall, House Bill 2273 died with their support. And the history of wind farms and what they've been able to gain because of unregulated areas of the state and lack of regulations in general in the state. There was a big wind farm in Sumner County that avoided paying $100 million in property taxes and got a lifetime waiver. And so it's interesting to see how they take advantage of a lack of regulations. It's been proven that it does affect the weather radar. Both Cape News and KFDI have done stories on this, and KFDI radio even shared radar images on Twitter when a storm came through and showed areas of the state that you couldn't see that storm because of the turbines. And I have links to that I can share with Mark if you'd like to see for yourself. I had actually called the National Weather Service about that to see if that was true, and they refused to talk to me once they knew I was from Andale and was wondering whether it impacted radar, if that was actually true. And they said they couldn't talk anything related to the wind farm or if it had anything to do with that. In 2019, when I contacted the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks Commissioner repping our area, he had nothing but good things to say about NextEra because he was on their payroll. He told me that he had turbines on his land near Pratt as part of a NextEra wind farm there. So at that point, I felt like anybody who felt like it shouldn't be going next to a state park with 1 million plus visitors was getting shut down from the state as well. So that's all I have at this time. I just want to remind you that a lot of people like today like myself have taken off work to be here, and many times in the past, many couldn't be here today because they have to take off work to be here. And so I just hope that you'll recognize that and all the hours that have been put forth. And I know that all of you have put forth several hours as well, and I hope you'll keep that in mind and respect the wishes of not putting a wind farm next to, really arguably, the most popular state park in the state. Thank you.
Hi. I was hoping you guys would never have to see me again.
I was looking forward to seeing you again.
Well, thank you. Again, I was really hoping today that we were going to be able to ban these in the southeast corner.
Excuse me, name again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Robin Wells, 14600 East Maple Grove, also own property in the southeast or southwest part of the county too. But I'm really here to talk about the southeast campus, or the southeast corner. And I know we've talked about it, a lot of the growth. And I know I've shared this, I didn't show up with it today. But when you look at the housing, the average housing in the Andale, which again, Renwick is Reno, Sedgwick County School District. When you look at those zip codes, the housing property values are significantly higher than anything north. I think, there's only one other place in Reno County that's higher. People are moving to that area. I think the other issue I really have with the southeast part of the county and with this wind farm is that 48% of the people who signed on are absentee. They don't live within the footprint. They may live in the county, but most of them live outside the county, even live outside the state. So again, a lot of the benefits, unfortunately, are not going to be felt here in Reno County. So again, I just ask again that we look at that southeast corner due to the lake, due to its access to Wichita, due to the access to Hutchinson and the 96 corridor, that you look at it as an opportunity for growth. And as you guys know, if you guys have been out in other parts of the state, where they build these are not where people are growing, it's not where people are moving, it's not where businesses are moving to. It is really in a location, and go to Western Kansas, it's feedlots. In fact, I think someone even spoke at the meeting, and he was from Ingalls. Big feedlot there. So yeah, of course, I think I would take even that over a feedlot. So again, I just ask that when we really look at the opportunity, that we really try to at least ban it from this area and look for other opportunities, because there's a lot of opportunity in this county. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Please make me never see you again, right? Thank you.
Any other public comment on case 2021-13?
There is a little bit of a delay outside, so I, give it a little bit.
Sorry, there's a little delay.
Yep, there it is.
I was like, do I go or do I not go? I don't know. I feel like I'm moving really slow. My name is Christina Unrein. I live in Sedgwick County, but I own property at 14814 East Maple Grove Road. I just wanted to say thank you, Steve, and to you guys for listening to us. I only have one question for Mark. You stated that the staff recommends denial of Article 15-111. And we were just all wondering, who is the staff? Because we've been through this for 3.5 years now. We spent tens of thousands of dollars out of our own pockets to protect ourselves. And your staff is recommending denial of that.
Staff would consist of me and the Director of Public Works, Don Britton.
Okay, so it's two people.
Yes.
So two people are stating that the entire portion of the county does not matter.
I didn't say that.
Thank you.
I'll get myself in trouble again here.
No, it's okay.
Actually, those two people are professional people who have studied this issue at great length, probably more than any of us, the rest of us here. So I wouldn't dismiss them out of hand as being just two people off the street, because
No, I understand that.
it's their job to ponder these issues and to do research, and
I understand that people in higher positions, of course, there's going to be less of
that
this.
doesn't mean they don't like you or.
No, I just really frustrated with this because obviously the CUP process has not worked for us. We've gone through this. We've battled this for 3.5 years. We've gotten our own lawyer. We've spent our own money. We've spent thousands and thousands of hours. And we're still in this. And I don't understand how you guys can say the CUP process works when it hasn't worked for us. How can citizens battle a billion-dollar company? They don't care how much money they spend. They've got hundreds of lawyers working for them. They will literally sue and sue and sue until they run us out of money. We have no fight. We have no rights. And I don't understand at what point do we say, you know what, we've got to step up and protect the citizens. That's the only point I wanted to make. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments for 2021-13?
My name's Harry Lobmeyer. I live in Hutchinson. I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, I don't know if any of you, I don't know, Mark or anybody have watched, Fox Nation did a special on wind towers here recently. And it's really worth watching if you haven't watched it. And they did talk about the big companies, kind of like she just said, they have deep pockets and they're the ones that benefit the most from this. And they don't care who it affects or who it hurts. And the other comment I'd just like to say, you know, when this started over 3 years ago, NextEra would not even give you guys 6 months to revamp and look at zoning restrictions. They said, oh no, we're out of here. Because time is of the essence, and that's their exact words, because I remember them saying it. And yet now they're still at it. They're still trying to do this project. And you know, one other thing, and not only they're still at it, but they have sued to get their way because they didn't like that you guys were trying to protect your constituents, your people. And from my experience, anybody that wants to sue you because you're trying to do your job and protect your people is not your friend. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments on this case?
Laura Lobmeyer from Hutchinson, Kansas, and we have watched our daughter have to sell her house and move to another house, and now we're having to watch her worry about wind towers coming right in by her house again, because the first time they put the electrical lines right 700 feet from her house, and by all the reports we gave you guys and books upon books of health issues with electrical lines and stuff, they could put it in there and say it was eminent domain because they were when they put the towers up or the lines up, there was no electricity, so there was no guidelines. So they can put their electrical lines, and who knows what they'll do if you guys let them go in again. Why do you think Sedgwick County and why do you think McPherson County both have said no wind towers? Because they have listened to their people. And yet Reno County is not listening. They're going to go ahead, I mean, after all the reports you guys have heard and all the stuff you've got on the health issues, on what it does to people, what, you know, you're ignoring your people. And that's a crying shame.
other comments on this case? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on case 2021-13.
A couple
Yep.
questions from Mark.
Yep.
Is that okay to still ask you a couple questions, Mark?
Sure.
So what impact, if we adopt this as it is written, what impact does it have on the past, on the lawsuit that's out there? Is there any impact there?
I really can't comment on that, just because it's in litigation, but truthfully, I don't know.
Would it only affect new applications? That's my question, I guess.
This would only affect new applications, we're really at the mercy of what the courts would say with the existing application. I don't know what that means. We would abide by whatever the court's decision is.
The other question is, we do prohibit some things within certain areas or whatever. I mean, we have, last time we talked about using shipping containers in residential areas, and we said we just don't want to do that. And so we do some prohibitions. It's not like we leave everything up to
Conditional use, right.
conditional use.
Yeah, I mean, there's a list of 6 prohibited uses, right now in certain zoning districts, though. So, like you said, shipping containers, those are allowed on ag and resident R1 zoning districts, just prohibited in R2 and R3. So we do allow them. It's not an outright prohibition on every single property. So that's the difference.
I feel like I need to say something so that the public and everybody understands why staff recommends not banning wind in the current zone area. It's because we look at it as a land use, and we've heard from the public and we hear from the commission that it's still a viable land use in part of Reno County. And so we look at it as a land use, not as a placement of anything. We're not saying that wind sails should be placed anywhere. We think that when it goes to the conditional use permit, that all the public, all the landowners, for or against, even the landowners, even the public outside of the area has an opportunity to a voice. And those people get to make a decision. And then if it comes down to where there's a protest petition and 20% of the landowners in that area don't want it, then there's another public hearing, and everybody, all the public gets to voice their opinion and sway the county commission to vote whatever they vote. But at least it's your decision. When you ban something, then nobody has a say. Even the people that would want wind, nobody has a say. So that's why we leave it up to the public to have a decision, to have a hearing. It's a land use. We're not advocating wind sail placement anywhere. As long as it's a land use in Reno County, then we think it should be a land use everywhere, and it goes through the process, and then the decision's made from that. If the Board of County Commissioners decided that they wanted to ban wind countywide, we would not object to that. But to ban a land use in part of the county and says, yes, it works over in that county, in that part of the county, we don't understand. It's a land use. So don't get that, think that we're saying that wind should go anywhere. That's another process. That's placement of wind, not land use. That may be, it's just we look at it as land use. That's it. And we want the public on both sides to have a voice.
May I ask you a question on that?
No, our public hearing is closed.
Okay, but he had made a statement, and I would like to ask a question on his statement. May I not?
If I open it up for you, I have to open it up for all.
Okay, well, he had opened a completely a comment that I just had a question on. Since it's, okay. I guess I'll address it next time. Okay, interesting, very interesting. More questions?
Does any of the planning commission members understand or misunderstand what I meant by that? The difference between land use and the placement of anything, whether it's allowed or not allowed? That it's two separate subjects?
I understand exactly what you said, and yes.
I understand the concept. I think it's hard for, I'm seeing a process that's working, but it'd work a lot better. In my mind, this is one man's opinion. Article 23 has been sitting on a desk for 10+ months. Article 23 might simplify some of our conversation tonight, but it's not on the table. So I can't talk to that, but I can talk to kind of add to what Don said and placement. We, as just a little background, we deal with accessory buildings, wind towers. We deal with a lot of land uses. I'm going to use the example of a building. Person has brings a CUP to us about a building. We do not ask about his placement. However, we do review it in relationship to where sewer is, where the well is. Other than that, we could care less where that thing is placed on that person's property. It's the land use that we look at. Is that building appropriate for the area it is? Commissioner French brought up the point about storage containers, about what we prohibit there. There are some things that we do not want, and that's a part of a land use. So, I'm struggling. I'm really struggling without having the backbone that we need in this Article 23 that isn't to the surface yet. But in that light, I have to make a decision within my own heart with the best way I can. So I just want people to know what I'm thinking. My mind is still going 100 miles an hour. I've been there for every last moment that you've been there. At maybe not in every last piece of your life, but there's a lot of familiar faces in this hall tonight. And we've listened to you. Still listening.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yes,
like
sir.
to make a motion. I would move to recommend approval of the text amendment to Article 15-111 based on the Public Record Association with Case 2020-09 and the testimony heard at this public hearing finding that commercial wind energy conversion systems are not appropriate in the current zoned area of the county and should be prohibited. Furthermore, I would move to recommend approval of the text amendments to the table of contents, Article 1-105, Article 13, and Article 24, as presented in the staff report and based on the testimony heard at this public hearing.
Been moved. Do I hear a second? Motion fails for lack of second. Is there any other discussion?
Well, I just want to say that I feel like the conditional use permit process is not a good process for commercial wind, because by the time we get to it, the companies have invested so much money and people don't know, I mean, they may know about it, that's kind of happening, but they don't have an opportunity for input until we're well into the process. So it was a painful process for all of us, and it didn't feel like it went well because we didn't work it out. I think ideally what we want to see is, we'd be happy to have wind energy if we felt like it was benefiting our community directly and that it was cited appropriately. We're going to have, we all love electricity, every one of us, and I'm not going to give it up. So we're going to have to figure out ways that we can generate electricity and in the appropriate places and ways that help us. But I was as frustrated as all of you were with that conditional use process, and I had a lot of sleepless nights just like you did, trying to figure out how we were going to get through that. So I don't know. I feel like we've heard from the community, and I just don't think that it's likely that we're going to see development within that southeast portion at this point without more pain, much more pain.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I think we're not sure.
I wasn't in on all this discussion, so I'm just not ready to vote.
Steve, if you make your motion again, I'll second it.
Okay. I move to recommend approval of the text amendment to Article 15-111 based on the public record associated with case 2020-09 and the testimony heard at this public hearing, finding that commercial wind energy conversion systems are not appropriate in current zoned area of the county and should be prohibited. Furthermore, I move to recommend approval of the text amendments to the table of contents, Article 1-105, Article 13, and Article 24 as presented in the staff report based on the testimony heard at this public hearing.
I will second that, but I would like to hear more discussion.
Move to second. Go ahead.
I guess I'd like to hear that complete motion reread so I can comprehend it, because it's not, you don't have it in print. Do you have it?
Well, it's in print.
It is
in two places, though, Arlie. If you look on the last page where it says alternative motion. Okay. And just the first part of that, and then at the very top of that page is the second part of it.
No, alternative. Up there.
Basically, what I'm doing is making a motion to approve the changes in the text amendments that were presented in to the regulations, which would prohibit the wind farms and then also to zone the unzoned area, to create the commercial wind energy system zoning area for the balance of the county.
You got the wrong line. Pull out 13, you had 14.
Excuse me. That's why I was having a hard time following you. Okay.
Last page.
Down here.
That first paragraph under that section, and then at the very top of the page, the same page, Harley.
No.
There, and then at the very top of the page is the second part of the motion. At the top of the page is that second part.
The second part is it.
Yeah, right.
That's the second part of it.
So he's not yet there.
So the recommendation would be to approve all of the text amendments as presented.
Correct.
Not as recommended by the staff.
Right. Approve all text amendments as written by staff, not my recommendation.
My hearing aids don't always work real well. You were essentially moving the alternative motion.
Well,
Part of it.
Except down here.
yeah, this is the second part of it up here.
Right.
Yeah, so
But you
this,
were-
then this, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You were substituting this portion for that?
Correct.
Yes.
But I think in what is on that page, the original second part of that was denying the creation of the CWAX zoning area, if I read that correctly.
Did you have some comments?
I want to hear what other people
No, okay.
say.
I'll just go down the line. Jack, you have any comments for this motion?
No, I don't. A lot of questions, no comments.
Now's the time to ask away.
111, approving that just prohibits the wind energy in the zone area.
Correct.
Period.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the second part of that motion basically approves the creation of the new zoned area in the currently unzoned
Okay.
part of the county as it pertains only to CWEX.
Which would require a CUP.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Mark, it's clear, though, that, if we added that additional zoned area only for wind energy, that's not included in the prohibition.
That's correct.
Yes.
Because that'll be a different resolution to add the zoning to that area, so that'll be under a different county resolution. So,
I think he references the two resolutions that define the current zoned area as far as those that are applicable to the prohibition.
But what we're talking about now is just the definitions. Adding the definitions of Article 24.
Adding 24 and then also
15-111. This doesn't have anything to do with the additional zoning area. It just-
No, it's just creation of the additional zoning area and the
Yep,
prohibition
Yep.
in the current zoned area. That's correct.
Just want to make sure.
I guess I have a concern, not for myself so much as we have lots of ears here. I want to make sure that those people all understand what we are voting on. And we are, I think, agreeing that wind energy cannot be in the zoned area. Is that correct?
That's what the motion states, yes.
And what about the unzoned area? I want to make sure they understand that too.
Well, what my motion does, Harley, is it provides for the creation of zoning as it relates to commercial wind energy systems in the currently unzoned areas.
And I understand that. I want to make sure that all of our ears over here understand that the same way. And I see some nodding of heads over there, and that, so that puts my concern to bed.
Good. Ken, you've done a lot of scratching. Are you contemplating something?
I'm still scratching that. Call the question.
Staff, call the roll.
Martin?
Yes.
Seltzer?
Yes.
Macklin?
Yes.
Jorns?
Yes.
French?
Yes.
Gertson?
Yes. Okay. Last item of business is case 2021-14. a request to amend the jurisdiction of the official zoning district boundary map as identified in Article 1-103 of Reno County zoning regulations by expanding the zoning authority for all land not currently zoned under the jurisdiction of Article 1-103. All land not currently under the jurisdiction is proposed to be zoned CWEX, Commercial Wind Energy Conversion System District. Staff.
So Article 1103 identifies the zoning boundary map, and the proposal is to take all current parcels that are unzoned and zone them commercial wind. And the only thing that will be regulated in that area will be a commercial wind project. Any other type of land use is still permissible. A small wind energy conversion system, building structures, houses, dividing your property, all that stuff is going to stay the same. You can certainly do that without zoning permits. Still have to meet the floodplain regulations, still have to meet the sanitation code for those types of projects, but essentially nothing is changing except if a landowner wants to establish a commercial wind energy project. And again, this, as you see in my report, I really struggled with this as well, for the same reasons I struggle with prohibiting when I still struggle with zoning the rest of the county for only one land use. That is against zoning principles, planning principles here. You know, staff, Mr. Britton and I, we had many discussions on what our recommendation was going to be on this. We go round and round here. You know, a commercial wind energy project, as everybody in this room, you know, knows, is probably one of the few types of land uses that should require a conditional use permit to provide the public that opportunity to come to a public hearing and voice their concerns or support, you know, for a project. Likewise, I think, you know, the county has a vested interest in those types of projects to be able to have, say, a quote-unquote seat at the table to be able to protect infrastructure. You know, being unzoned out there, a company could just come in and start building a project like that without any type of input from the county. So like I say, planning principles, practices, call it what you will, you know, says that if you're going to zone a portion of the county, that you should do everything that zoning allows, zoning districts, subdivision regulations, permitting, all that. There's nothing that's unusual about the eastern part versus the western part, you know, of the county. But taking everything into perspective here about the potential for a commercial wind energy project out there on the citizens, but also on county and township infrastructure. For that reason, staff is recommending approval of amending the article out there and adding zoning for the rest of the county for only commercial wind. If you have questions for me?
How will this board handle a CUP if the zoning is approved? Do we go back to what, to our 3 paragraphs worth of regulations that we now have in the zoning regs? Or I'm just trying to picture how we would move forward if the zoning would take place, if this would be passed. How would we look at that?
Well, it's going to be, we hope, under Article 23. Probably what should happen is Article 23, which is currently being tabled, should be adopted before we would adopt zoning out there, so we have that article in place before we would consider and adopt the countywide zoning right now. Because everything in Article 24 references the proposed Article 23. Staff would probably have to do some further amendments, or, you know, we'd have to look at that if for some reason Article 23 is never adopted and taken off the table. But it's our idea and our hope that, yes, it will be taken off the table sometime here soon and decided on, with it, because like I say, Article 24 references everything in Article 23, and we don't have an Article 23 yet. So if a project would happen out there, the regulations under Article 23 would govern that. Now, as far as public hearing procedure and stuff, that's still going to be under our current regulations, state statute, notify everybody within 1,000 feet, conduct a public hearing, same protocols as that. But yeah, the regulations is what's going to be the question. The regulations, we don't know what those are going to be yet because those have not been adopted.
But wouldn't it be that if we do adopt the amendments to Article 103, even though, Article 23 has not been approved or adopted by the county commission yet, we would still be, in essence, putting in place the CUP procedures for that currently unzoned area.
Yes.
So anybody that wanted to put in a wind farm out there would have to make a conditional use permit application and come before us, and then that would be worked out. Now, admitted the regulations are an issue, because right now we have the very minor few regulations, which is what we had when Nexterra came in. And, so it's just a give and take type, negotiation at that point, rather than having regulations like we proposed to the county commission to fall back on. So I think it would be a benefit to the remaining part of the county to pass this. So at least they have some protections there through the conditional use permit process.
Yeah. Bringing that in place would permit the citizens to come to a public hearing and provide that testimony. That's
Yeah, it doesn't allow the wind companies to come in carte blanche and do what they want.
It's possible the county commission might want to send those regulations back to the planning commission because we were really looking at that southeast portion. So if we're looking at the western half of the county, we might want to look at them. Maybe there's something there that needs to be adjusted.
That's certainly on the table with the county commissioners. They could certainly refer that article back to the planning commission for further discussion, more specifically to answer their questions or have you look at a different concept or something. Yeah, so it's not be done in December. We'll call you back. But yeah, that's certainly on the table as well. We don't know where that's going to go yet. But the CUP process would be put in place.
And if we had some other issue come up in the western part of the county, we might be back here again trying to add to another layer of this.
Yes.
That's the concern with not just adding zoning in the western part. When you try to just do one land use, then you may have something else pop up that's just equally divisive.
That is the concern, and that's why I struggled with writing this report and this recommendation. Is you know as well as I do, we talked about that in some of the other board members on what are the top 10 land uses that we may want to regulate out there, and it's very hard to come up with those top 10 land uses that we may want to regulate, because inevitably you're going to have another land use that wasn't on that list that, oh, we should have regulated that. So that is why I struggle with this recommendation, because if we would adopt full zoning, we eliminate that concern, because every land use, like under our current zoning regulations, is going to require that conditional use permit. So whether it's a commercial wind facility, or it's a landscaping business, or it's a restaurant, or whatever, it's going to come through that process and allow people to be able to come to a public hearing, provide testimony. It's going to allow staff to review all that. When you're doing just one land use, okay, we've got that covered, but inevitably there could be another land use out there that we want to regulate. It's been mentioned here before, solar. That's another one right now. Solar's not on this list, so solar can go in without any kind of conditional use permit review.
That would be my next question. Do you anticipate a need to, at some point, include solar?
Depends on the direction of the county commissioners. We can certainly look at solar for the eastern part of the county if we want to do a text amendment or look at something like that to have more specific regulations. But the western part, we would have to come back and amend Article 24.
In my naivete, I would it seems to me there's less downside problems with solar than there is with wind, just from the public nuisance type of a standpoint. There's no shadow flicker and there's no noise pollution. It's just a matter of location and accessing the system and roads and how they're going to tie into the grid or where the power is going to go.
Each land use is unique in that sense. It depends on where you are putting that land use. We've done many cases here where it's out, there's not a lot of homes nearby, there's not going to be a lot of impact in the area, so the conditional use permit is fairly smooth. We've had other ones where they've been a little bit more tedious, and we've had to do some other things here, but it all depends on where that land use is going to go. And being out in the western part, you can do what they want out there, except for the commercial end.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay, we'll open the public comment phase for case 2021-14. Is there anyone who wants to comment towards this case?
Joe Heber, 15200 East Maple Grove Road, Tahoe. Just something that may, just to consider or think about as moving forward with what to do with anything that may have a conditional use permit walking through. What you're talking about getting more involvement maybe for the area, or be able to have a voice or a say-so. One way to be able to do that is to get away from the minimum, which is the Kansas statute of 1,000 feet notice. And voice for that 20% we're talking about. That may help others to agree maybe with what it's in a draft for, setback, shadow flicker, anything, if more people can have a voice. So raise that bar, get that above the Kansas statute. That was never made for 500 to 700 foot tall spinning buildings. It was meant for something else. Find out what that thing was derived from. And it's going to be a height ratio. I guarantee it's there somewhere. And so if maybe up the bar on that would be able to get more voices involved to be able to put something together and have a successful conditional use. I have to get to another event here back home, so we're going to head out. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was just waiting for you.
Sorry, back one more time. King Conklin, 2186 South Broad Acres Road, Yeah, I agree with the proposed amendment to create the special zoning district and as outlined on the proposed zoning map. And I just had some questions that came up when Mark was talking about this. The Article 23, that is the proposed regulations, right? That is still being worked on and fine-tuned and all that, right?
In the county commissioner's hands right now. So it's through this board, it's done with this board, it's in the county commissioner's hands right now. Adopt or refer back or deny.
So all those setbacks and all those kind of things?
Yep.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with this board anymore.
Okay. And so that's what you were talking about, getting those approved before going ahead and doing
Yes.
this zoning, getting this here. Okay, yeah, because that's what I kind of wanted to be sure is that whatever is kind of approved in the zoning is then applied to our area too. Those same kind of things, that's what that's the way I had interpreted it. And it would be similar to what was in there.
Yes.
And so even if that prohibition goes through, then the zoning that's been done, it sounded like you were talking about having to go through that again. And I was thinking, you've already been through there. Take those regs and put them in that zoned area. So, okay. I think that's it. Yeah, if it, like I said, if it's prohibited in the zoned areas, then that would be good to have, for us to have all those protections in the unzoned area, so. And I just wanted to thank you guys for all the time and work involved in the process of addressing all these and listening to everybody's concerns and issues and whatever. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment towards 2021-46?
Please, I'm coming here as a citizen, not a county commissioner, and I want to let you know that I'm not influencing, I'm just providing you some information that I have asked for and received from citizens in District 2 that is unzoned, okay? Of that information that was put out in 2 weekly newspapers and some telephone calls, I have not received one negative towards this. Just by way of information only, okay?
I'm Gina Smith. I live at 1716 East Arlington Road. Again, we're just barely out of the zoned area, so we would appreciate having some zoning guidelines in our area. I too want to comment with the fact that we went around in the unzoned areas. We weren't even affected really by the first CUP, but we know that there are properties in our area that have already had land contracts on, quite a few, as a matter of fact. As we went around and got signatures, it was amazing how many people did not know what was going on. Right, wrong, or indifferent, everybody's so busy. And honestly, up until Tuesday night, we didn't know that this was happening. And so I too would agree that more people who are affected by such a huge thing should be informed. It just doesn't seem really fair that they're not. Because I think also that if you would do that, you would find out that there is a lot more opposition. And you would also know you would know without a doubt that people would say, no, we want to be protected from this. Not only from the huge infrastructure, from the towers, but from the electrical that's going through. So I just really thank you for approving tonight the prohibiting in the southeast corner, but I would also appreciate it if you would zone our area. That's all I have to say.
Once again, I will say that I'm open and receptive to suggestions for how to go about doing that. We publicize the agendas in advance. Now, we may say that it's a case number such and such, probably doesn't give you a lot of information what exactly that case discusses, but maybe we can add something to what that case involves, but I don't know how to do that. I understand the problem because there's a lot of things that happen that I don't understand or don't know about in the world too. But
Everybody's got a mailbox, mail it to them.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to have to. That would take a process to try and figure out how to work that, and we don't have a good process for that
It does
beyond what we
when
have.
elections come by.
Yeah.
We get those in our boxes.
Yeah.
Somebody's paying for them.
That's true.
So do we want to pay, do you all want to pay?
Yeah, I would.
By everybody in the
I
county?
really would.
I mean, we're either going to pay for it that way or we're going to get sued by a big company.
I think we used to depend on the newspaper, but of course that's just.
That's out.
It is.
No, either people don't read it or it's not there.
Right.
So it's a real dilemma to figure out how, there are public notices and there are things that are published and they're online on the county's website. So I don't know, I don't know a good way that we do that, and it's probably not possible to mail to everybody in the county, but maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but there's got to be a way. I mean, especially with such big, something this big, it just, I don't know. It's just very frustrating. So, thank you.
I will back up that with my children, with myself. The newspapers are not being used anymore.
Yeah.
You know, in the classrooms anymore, we don't use those anymore. We use social media, and if you're not on social media anymore, if you're not live streaming, if you're not, it's not getting anywhere anymore. I guess that's why I really didn't understand where my head was in the classroom. But I want to thank you. All I'm just asking is that we get we are zoned as well, and that I guess the neighbors, the farmers aren't going to stick one right on my property line. That I will have, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I guess I want to say as well, on my line, my property line as well, I know that the farmers can put, and you guys can zone what you want, but when we have that flicker, when we have the vibrations, even though I want it set back a little bit, I want a little bit of a say too, because it will carry on into mine. So if you guys would put those, I'd appreciate that. That's what I'm asking for. Because I know there's wind turbine syndrome. I know I've researched it. I know it could be or could not be something, but we don't know. We really don't know what the bad health people like myself, what it would do. You know, just throwing that out there. Could it affect me in 5 years? Well, it would probably be, I'm around then. But what about those people? They're very poor health. How's that? Will it be an effect on you down the road? Will they sue? I mean, you gotta look at that side too. Because there's a lot of things that have come out on diet pills 20 years later. It came out that now they're coming around suing. And so you have somebody that's bad health. They put something out, 100 feet, 50 feet from the property line, all of a sudden something comes out. You got vultures all around you. I'm just saying, you got a hard job. But just so when you're looking at those regulations, just be careful. Make sure you're backed off far enough that you're protecting yourself as well, and the people as well. I probably won't be around long enough to see it, but just so you know. Thank you. Please protect us.
Wayne Mans, 14918 East Maple Grove Road. I just want to clarify that we're talking, I may not be using the correct terminology, but we're talking about limited zoning of sorts for the unzoned portion of the county, correct?
Correct.
And without that type of limited zoning, the county has no say-so in where a wind farm would be placed.
Correct.
And they could put it at any setback distance from homes, and the county has no jurisdiction to dictate anything.
Correct.
I just don't see that there would be any upside to leaving it in that state. Without any input from the county, nothing the county could do to protect any of the residents in the unzoned area. So please do provide zoning for them. Thank you.
Jason Sywert, 14202 East Maple Grove Road, Mount Hope, Kansas, 67108. To build off of what Wayne just said, I would also be in favor of proposed restricted zoning. To build off what Mr. Britton said, that thank goodness the last CUP entered into some zoning parts, or we wouldn't have had the voices. And we've been given those voices for 3.5 years. And so thank goodness there was portions of the county that created this CUP that brought it in front of us, or else we'd be in a different scenario right now. So I think that's a valuable tool to give the citizens the opportunity to voice their concerns, as we have. I do appreciate it. It's a very important process, so I would be in favor also. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to get emotional. Marty Westfall, 3907 East Irish Creek Road. To Ken's question of how to get the information out, I believe when Commissioner Bush was still on the commission, he came to the planning commission and suggested that meetings be held in the unzoned area. Do y'all remember that? There was someone else on the commission at that, or the planning commission at that time. And I think the question was asked, would you be willing to pay for this? Is there money for this? And the answer was yes. So I think you have a very strong group already formed, and I'm just speaking as an individual, not for them. But there's a lot of members of that group that were in an unzoned area at the time that the CUP was filed. And, you know, information is critical to people. And having meetings, having informational meetings, personal meetings at the different small towns, Pretty Prairie, you know, wherever, Turon, Langdon, Abbeville, and having people who've been through this and understand what protections, what specialty zoning would give them to, you know, I think you would have a lot of positive feedback on that. I think I'm calling it specialty zoning, is very important for the unzoned area because it gives those people a voice. And, you know, right now there is no voice. And the county really has no recourse either for wind energy. Thank you.
Any other comments for this case? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of case 2021-14. Chair will entertain a motion so we can discuss.
I move to recommend approval of this request to amend Article 1-103, expanding the zoning jurisdiction countywide and only for commercial wind energy conversion systems based on the testimony at the public hearing and the reasons presented in the staff report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, we've been warned philosophically many years about the dangers of trying to jump over a lake in two jumps. Now, we've been arguing and debating the correctness or incorrectness of living in a county which only a third of which was zoned and 2/3 of the geography of which was unzoned. This strikes me as an attempt to jump over the rest of the county in two jumps, but perhaps it's the right thing to do, so I will happily second that motion and will support it, but this has been a long time coming, and I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but I will support it.
I have to agree with you that this idea of two jumps, like this would have been the opportune time to consider full zoning for the rest of the county so that we can protect against, for all reasons.
To pursue Mr. Commissioner Hurst's comments, I think you'd meet a lot of opposition
I know
to full-scale zoning. But again, when the situation is explained that it just applies to wind energy, well, I think he's had nothing but support there, and I've heard nothing but support for a kind of a restricted zoning type situation. So maybe this is the right time for two jumps.
But I also expressed the same concern that Commissioner Jorns did, and Lisa, you're concerned, this business of coming up with just one thing we're going to zone for is I hope that doesn't come back to haunt us someday, but like you, I will support this motion.
I think there's a consensus. We'll take an official vote here in a second, but nonetheless.
I'm sorry, sir.
I'm hearing a consensus, but we'll take an official vote here in just a second. I support with some hesitancy. only for the fact that we only have very rudimentary guidelines. If, for some reason, there is an application prior to Article 23 being adopted, I'd admonish our county commissioners to expediency to getting that taken care of.
I second what you just said.
Ball's in their court.
Yep.
It's been there for, what?
10 months. I can almost count the days if you want.
We worked pretty diligently to get to a certain plateau.
For sure.
So I've got a question, being the new kid here again. Article 23 established setbacks and other details about how the towers could be placed. Is that correct?
Right,
Okay.
yes.
Correct. All right.
Yes.
Which, that has not been approved
Right. Correct.
by the, okay. So this puts in motion, I guess, that people have to apply for a CPU.
Yes.
That's correct.
To do this, if we approved it, there's no regulations as to where they could put it.
Do very little.
Very low.
Very little.
Very low.
Okay.
I was very low regulation.
I'm digging them out.
Okay.
And I do
Yeah,
have,
all right.
I think it's worth looking at them again.
Yes.
I think it's worth the county commissioners looking at them again, just to see if they're appropriate for the western part of the county. If there's some things, because we hassled over those a lot, but we were thinking very specifically about the situation in the southeast part of the county, and maybe they're not quite right for that area out there. So I don't think you should spend very much time on it, but I think it might be worth looking at.
Lisa, in my dialogue relative to us coming up with that Article 23, I was seeing it as the whole county. I wasn't limited to just
I'm not thinking
southeast.
any specific thing, so it may be that they're entirely appropriate.
The regulation should have been developed with the whole county in mind, even though they would only apply to the eastern third, but saying that there are some adjustments that are gonna have to be made with those regulations based on this new direction, and so there'll be some changes to that document. Now, it doesn't get into the specifics of setbacks and noise and all that we have to make changes, but there was one thing on there that we did overlook, I could mention, with the size of a commercial turbine versus the size and megawatts of a small turbine, there's a gap in there, so we're gonna have to adjust and close that gap. But, yeah, there'll be some changes, I'm sure, with that document, potentially. And like I said, it could get referred back to this board again, potentially, too.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call for the previous question.
Staff, call the roll.
Martin?
Yes.
Seltzer?
Yes.
Macklin?
Yes.
Jorns?
Yes.
French?
Yes.
Gertson?
Yes. Okay. All business, is there any other business to be brought forth before this board?
I don't have anything.
What's our caseload in December? Can I ask that? Have anything?
Yes, you can ask that, and there's no public hearings in December. We're just gonna do year-end business, look at our regulations, look at the comprehensive plan again, look at the dates for next year, that type of stuff, so be a light agenda. If you have items you'd like to discuss at that meeting, then just bring them forth to me and we can put them on the agenda.
Will the new commissioners be appointed by then?
Hope so. Hopefully, well, they'll be appointed, they'll be seated January 1, but if they are appointed, then hopefully they can at least attend the meeting. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, as a point of history, in my first incarnation on this board back in the 90s, we did meet occasionally in a location which would have been affected by the decisions. I recall meeting once, in fact, I chaired a meeting once in the Methodist Church in Haven when there was a zoning question about zoning.
Were they I being prohibited?
The Methodist congregation was very generous and very kind to allow us to meet in their basement. I did have to promise that if any fisticuffs broke out, we'd be responsible for it and try to keep damages to a minimum. But I also chaired a meeting in the Yoder grade school at one point when we had a case in that area. That perhaps is something that's a bygone era. I don't know.
I think the technology today, because I know they stream all these meetings on YouTube, so anybody can sit down and watch this thing live on YouTube if they want to, or tomorrow they can sit down and watch it on YouTube.
Some years ago, with the development of the internet, we were promised we would move into the information age, and I think we have, or we're certainly going there. Now, there is so darn much information out there, you don't know what to believe, and it becomes a blur. I think we can publicize what the meeting agenda is and what's going to be discussed, and I still think 99% of the public will find it, will be oblivious to it, and so only those who really are watching will find that helpful. I don't know. I'm not opposed to doing it, but I think we have plenty of information to select from already. But you don't know what's true and what isn't.
Well, it's on the internet, it's true, isn't it?
It's got to be true. Yeah. I'm done rambling now.
Ask Sarah.
Yeah.
She'll tell you.
I would be pleased to visit with the young lady with the blue shirt here and the football shirt later on, but that would be, we don't need to do that on public time.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.